Just Ooga without the booger. Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm changing the oil. The car is already warm, so the oil should flow a little bit better. So all I have to do is get started. We'll get to the oil filter in a minute, but first let's jack up the car, then get the oil out. Then I will get to explain to you the trick to get to the oil filter if you don't want to remove the prongeron or the subframe, which it would be a bit overkill for this job. So that will be pretty much it for today. So stick around and you may learn a thing or two. And let's get started. Right, so the first thing to do is to jack up the car. And place it on jack stands. Now I personally use a block of wood on top of the jack stand to spread the load in better, but I guess you don't have to. The next thing to do is to get something to hold the oil that you're going to drip. I have a 5 liter of paint bucket that is empty. There are specifically designed buckets for that which are flatter and they have a surface to run the oil in, but I just use a paint bucket. It's got an aperture that it's big enough that I'm not going to miss it with the oil, and it's a bit cheaper to reuse one of these, and it's also better for the environment. After all, you know, before you recycle, you're meant to reuse, and that's exactly what I'm doing. So with that in mind, let's take the sump plug out and get some oil. Okay, so we are looking at a size 22 socket. Now remember, in my case the oil is hot because no, it feels warm, it doesn't feel too hot. Yeah, this is not a problem at all. Right, so remove the sump plug. I'm trying to avoid getting my hands full of oil. Okay, that's not too bad. Give it time to flush. While this is just dripping and draining itself, let's get to the oil filter. Right, when it comes to the oil filter, you have 3 options. 1, you don't remove anything off the car and you try to access it from underneath or from the side, and you will struggle, and you will struggle a lot, and if it's very tight you will probably not be able to remove it, or you will struggle even more. Option number 2 is you remove the subframe. I have a video on how to remove the subframe. It is a job that sounds harder than it actually is. However, it is not what I would suggest doing. And the third option is to use the Jeff Smith approach. And this is a very difficult one to explain with a camera. And the description is on LEC. I will put it on the description of the video. But I'm going to try to explain it here, and I'm going to try to record it. So we'll see how lucky I get with this one. So the first thing is, you should not jack up your car as high as I have jacked up mine. So the technique is rather straightforward. What you need to do is reach out from the back of the engine, from the side of the air intake, and squeeze your hand through all of those wires until you reach the oil plug. Now, for this task, it's actually easier to do it if you don't have any sleeves. So I'm gonna change and get that started. So here I have no sleeves, and I'm experimenting with just putting some petroleum jelly around my arm to see if it slides through all of that crap easier. And now it's just a matter of knowing more or less where the oil filter is, which is close-ish to the DOC area, and how far down you need to go, which is more or less as far down as the turbo heat shield is, a little bit lower than that I think. But you just need to wiggle your arm in that direction, and once you get to it you will recognize it because you will feel a smooth surface that it's a little bit round. So let's see how this goes. Okay, I found it, and as you can see I am pretty much elbow deep onto this. Now it would be nice to have help for someone to pick up the oil that drops. Unfortunately I did not do that, so I'm hoping that it dropped on the bucket, but that is very unlikely. Now you have two options. Once the oil plug or the oil filter is out, you can bring it out with your arm, which is a little bit difficult, but it's doable. And you just need to wiggle it back through all of the cabling and piping. Or you can drop it down and then pick it up from underneath. But there is the oil filter, so I'm going to just put a new one in. And here goes the new oil filter. I already put some oil around the seal. In the past, what I had was someone from underneath passing me down the oil filter, so I never tried this before, but according to the description, you should be able to just squeeze in the new oil filter from the top. Now, we know that there's space because one came out, but that doesn't mean that you are able to actually do it. So let's see how things go. And now, the fun bit is that you are just blindly finding the place to tighten the oil. And I found it. Now I just need to tighten it by hand, but greasy hands can't get oil, can't tighten much, so I'm gonna clean my hands and try to also clean the oil, the filter. I'm gonna use some paper towels to try to clean it, and probably also, if I have enough grip with a paper towel, I'll just use the paper towel to tighten the oil filter. Right, let's see. Can I tighten that any further? Yes. I think I got a good 5 to 10 degrees more in, but that is as tight as I can do it by hand. So now that the oil filter is in, we can put the plug back in. In theory you're meant to use a new washer, but I don't. I just reuse the same copper washer. If it doesn't leak, it's okay. If it starts leaking, get a new one. So we'll put the plug back in and then start topping up with oil again. And here we are, back underneath the car with sleeves. And yeah, you see that there's still a little bit of oil dripping, but I'm not going to think too much about that. Trying to clean it, maybe see if it stops dripping. Nope, it's still definitely dripping. There's some oil from the oil filter, which you can see it's made its way to the prongeron. Now I'm going to reuse the same plug. What I mentioned previously about replacing the washer, this is the copper washer that I was referring to. Yeah, hopefully you can see that in the camera. Let's try to get some light there. Yeah. Now, I don't know torque specs for this stuff. I am sure that someone will know torque specs for this, but the way I look at it, it's really simple. Just make it snug. If snug is good enough so that it doesn't leak, then you don't need to make it more than snug. Because the harder you tighten it, the higher the chances are of over-tightening it, cross-threading it, doing all kinds of damage, and not to mention that when you come to remove it next year, it's going to be harder. So yeah, just a nice tug. Just a ooga without the booga. So right now you're in a position where you can lower the car, because all you have to do is top up with oil. However, in my case, I'm not going to lower the car just yet. What I'm going to do is top up with oil, start the engine, let it warm up, check for leaks, and then I will lower the car. Right, so when it comes to oil, I do what the sticker over there says, 1030. I put fully synthetic. That sticker doesn't make any statement about it, and I put the cheapest thing that I find. Now, if you're asking questions, well, the book says, well, the Lotus Elan Center website says 3.5 liters, so I'm going to start with that as a base and see how it goes. As far as oil grades, I put 530 fully synthetic of the cheapest thing I can find. I believe that in the last 30 years there must have been enough development to improve this oil that the cheapest thing will do. Now, obviously, I may be wrong, but I am willing to put my own engine to the test with that, and so far I haven't noticed any problems with it. So yeah, we'll see what life tells me, what life brings forward. Okay, so that is 3.5 liters. Right, so I guess that brings us to the end of this video. The oil change is actually a very easy thing to do, as long as you know how to get to the oil filter, which Jeff's approach works great for me. If you can't, if you have very thick arms, you can always remove the pronger on. And yeah, 3.5 liters gone in. I'm gonna let it sit, lower the car, let it sit, and yeah, then start it. So I hope you learned a thing or two from this video, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, hi again! One thing I forgot to mention was disposal of the oil. Now, in the UK, you just take it to the tip. What I do is slightly different. I actually mix the oil with diesel and use it for my fence panels. It protects the wood. So, it's one way to, reuse instead of recycle. See you in the next video.